Hey guys, and welcome back to part 2 of the Ram rebuild. It has a nice ring to it, I like it. In the last episode, we did the suspension and the engine. There wasn't really anything to do in the engine besides replacing the radiator and putting a new battery in. And then in the suspension, the driver's side suspension, we replaced the upper control arm, upper ball joint, sway bar link, tie rod, brake pads, and the spindle. So we replaced pretty much everything in that, front end area. In this episode, we're gonna be focusing on the exterior, so the fender, the driver door, and then we're gonna try to bump out that back fender. There's a big dent there. And then we're also gonna replace the taillight, which is just like 2 bolts, but it'll make it look a lot better, and I have to replace it for it to pass inspection. So we're gonna start by prepping the new door and fender and get them painted. And then once those are finished, we'll transfer the hardware from the old door and fender onto the new stuff and get those installed on the truck. And then we'll focus on the stuff in the rear afterwards. This is the new to me door. It is pre-owned. It's got some dings on it. I paid $280 for this door, which is a steal. A lot of the doors on eBay that I was looking at were like $400 or $500 just for the shell. They'd be like $700 to $800 if they came with all the pieces, like the mirror, the door handle, and all the interior bits. But I don't need that stuff because I want everything to match in my truck. So I was looking for just the shell, and I found this local seller who was selling this for local pickup only at I think it was like $320 or something, and then I offered him lower, and then we countered at $280. But we need to paint it because it's white and the truck is silver. It's got these 2 small dings, or maybe 3 small dings, where the metal is kind of like bent back, the metal's bent up, and then here it's just a big scrape. So we're gonna sand this all. We're gonna get it filled with some Bondo and make sure it's, it's smooth and flush. But besides that, the rest of the door doesn't have any dings on it. There's just like some scuff marks, but no like actual impressions in the metal. It's in really good condition. We do need to take this off, which we'll use a heat gun from the rear and heat up the glue and then take that off. And then I think we'll also have to remove this black part. This isn't paint, it's almost like a wrap. And so we'll have to remove that and put a new one on because they drew with Sharpie on it, and I don't know if I don't think it's gonna come off. Oh, maybe it will. Acetone. All right, gently now, gently. It just looks like it's like mushing the black a little bit too though. Like it's like smudging it. No, I think it's fine. Oh yeah, some black is coming off. Maybe that's just dirt. Well, I'll go at that more in a little bit. Let's get this started. Let's get the logo off, and then we'll start filling the dents and get the paint prepped. All right, so I was just messing with this sticky stuff a little bit, trying to see like how I was gonna get it off. And actually, if you just use your fingernail and you kind of just like scrape it, it completely comes off the paint and it leaves no residue. Like it's not sticky there. But yeah, you just kind of pick at it and then it just kind of like starts coming off. So for the next one, I'm actually gonna try a plastic spatula and using the heat gun to heat it up first. And it's kind of just like messy. Yeah, it does not work as good. So for these dents, they both kind of like protrude out this way and this way a little bit. You can see they're kind of poking out. So what I'm gonna try to do is use some pliers and compress them so the bumps are a little less extreme on both of them. And then I'm also going to chip away as much paint as possible, just because if it's raised, we want to remove any paint that's not attached to the metal anymore. While we're waiting for that to dry, we're just gonna start sanding the rest of the door and getting it all ready for primer. We got the front side all sanded down. We're gonna sand down all the exposed white parts as well on the inside so that when the door is open, you don't see any white paint. And then we'll paint it all silver as well. Now to get this off the ground, because when we're painting, I wanna be able to paint around all the edges, I'm gonna make a bit of an attachment. It's gonna be a 2x4 that's gonna go from here all the way to there, and I'm gonna use some long bolts and some pre-existing nut holes, add like a chain to it or something, and then hook that to the engine stand. So I have it completely cleaned, wiped down with a tack cloth. So I think we're good to go. We're gonna start by doing a little like dusty primer coat. Not a full primer coat, just dusting around. And then we'll let that dry for a couple minutes, and then we'll just do one dusty silver coat, and then we'll do like a wet coat. I wanted to show you guys this. I think it's kind of funny the way I have this mounted so that it doesn't spin back. I took a piece of like crochet string from my girlfriend and I tied it to the steering wheel on my Datsun. So we'll just let that dry and then we'll come back and hit it with some paint in a little bit. So now while we're waiting for the paint coat on that to dry, we're just gonna move it out of the way. We're gonna get the fender out. We're gonna hang the fender on the garage rail because it should be pretty light. And we'll put some paint on that. I'm pretty sure that's already primed, so it'll just need paint. All right guys, now both these pieces have had all night to dry. They look and feel great. I mean, as good as a rattle can gets. But overall, I'm pretty happy with the results. So now we're just gonna clean this up a little bit. We're going to disassemble the truck, get all the old pieces off, and then start transferring pieces over to the door. One thing I want to note before taking off this fender is that the hood right now doesn't close correctly. It's like low on this side and high on this side. And when it comes down, that loud click, it hits this metal and then it pops above it and it makes that really loud sound. But I'm pretty sure that once this fender comes off, this will straighten out. All right, so I have everything unbolted on the fender. It's loose everywhere, except for right here. It's like stuck here. And I looked behind here. It's kind of hard to see, but this piece of metal is just completely bent. It's one more mounting bracket for the fender. and it unbolts from in here, but I can't get in there because it's so like damaged. So we're gonna try like yanking it out. Oh. We should be able to unbolt it now. It should be right there. It's still gonna be a little tight. One more big bend. I don't want to cut this bracket because I want to be able to bend it back so that the new fender can mount onto it. So I'll just go in there with a wrench and kind of like slowly get that nut off. Now with the fender off, I can kind of show you guys some of the damage. Down here, so this is the impact bar. This isn't damaged at all. It's perfectly straight. There's no bends at all. The only bending is down here. I'd say it starts about here and starts bending down. So from here down, it's kind of like bent like this. You can see it's, you know, been pushed in and this has been crinkled. And then down here, this is all impacted, you know, straight dent. But we're not going to be pulling this out because I don't have the tooling to do that. It's something I'm going to take to a shop later on, and they'll have to use some really big body pullers, and they like hook chains up to this and yank it out. We're going to clean this up and paint it so it doesn't continue to rust. And anywhere where the seam has kind of been opened up, like right here, the seam has been opened up, we'll put new seam sealer in there so that water can't get inside the cabin. Any rust, any unpainted areas, we'll clean up, prime it, paint it. You know, this is the wheel well, so when it's raining, a ton of water gets in here. I just want to make sure everything is sealed, no rust continues. We have to fix this too. This has to get pulled out. I don't know where it's supposed to be, so we need to put the new fender on and then kind of like bend this to where it needs to be. It's exciting to see that certain things aren't bent. You know, when you're taking apart these crash cars, you're not really sure. There's some things you can't see with it all put together. So it's cool to see that there's, you know, it's really not that much damage on this thing. And you know, they totaled it out, which is crazy. They thought there was more damage, which there isn't. Their loss and my gain. All right, now let's get that door off. So we have to move the engine stand out to the grass, drop the old door, and then hook up the engine stand to the old door because the door is actually pretty heavy, especially with the window and everything still attached. Having a little bit of an issue with this. I have everything unbolted and I'm like trying to undo this, and it's loose on the bottom, but it's not loose on top. And I think what the issue is that if you look here, when you pull this plastic piece out, the window regulator here, like the window rail, moves with the piece of plastic. And you can see these inverted bolts, which are only accessible from the other side. So I'm pretty sure the way this is done is we're gonna have to roll down the window, and then the window will kind of be like attached to this plastic piece, which is kind of cool. And it's a lot easier than trying to fiddle a window in through the, you know, how the old cars do it. You have to put the window through the top here. But on this truck, it looks like it's gonna be attached to this plastic piece. I mean, if we go and look at the new door, there's this huge hole right here. So I'm guessing the entire window regulator and like window and everything is just gonna come out in one big piece versus the window coming out by itself. So I'm gonna put everything back together. I think this is an airbag sensor, so if anyone else is doing this, make sure your airbag sensor is back in, because we're gonna have to turn the car back on and attach the battery. So if that was uninstalled and you put the battery back on, it would think that you were in a collision and it would explode airbags. Luckily mine are already exploded. So we'll just put everything back together, all the sensors, just in case anything else, you know, is weird. We'll plug the battery back in, roll the window all the way down, and then we'll try this again. All right, the next issue is that now it's loose up here, which is good, but it's tight down here. And so if you look in here, you can kind of see that the window, the rail, so that white piece, focus, that white piece is what the window, like what pushes the window up and down. And that piece on that side, so there's two, one on each side. And then those are attached to this motor, which pulls them up and down. I think since the door is so bent, you can see here, this is the door coming in. You can see on this side, that's part of like the really impacted area. The door has come in and it's so tight that I don't think the window's gonna come out this way. I think it's gonna have to go back up, but I'm gonna have to disconnect it from those rails down there somehow. And I'm not really sure how I'm supposed to do that. It's really tight. I can like barely get my hand down there. So yeah, that seemed to be it. It just had to be like popped off the rail. This whole entire piece kind of just ended up popping out. Now we have to get the window out, but the window is like off of the rail. So I'm gonna have to like kind of push and pull and get it to come out. It looks like it comes out the top. I don't think it's gonna fit through this hole in the bottom. All right, now I think everything that can be disassembled before taking off the door is disassembled. So I think it's time to take it off. We're gonna drop the new door and then we'll attach it to this and take this off. All right, so we got the door off. This is the damage that we're dealing with. You can see how it's indented here. The top one's not really indented at all, but the bottom one's the real issue. So if we put the bracket, it's supposed to be about here, which is about like ½ an inch. All right, so this is my idea. The bracket is bolted back on, and now we're gonna take this pipe and kind of like wedge it in there and then push this way. I might have to get a longer pipe, but you guys get the idea. So I upgraded to a bigger pipe and it still didn't really do anything. I think my best bet for what I have at home is to just put some shims behind the one part and kind of even it out. So we'll put some shims behind this side and kind of pull the latch out a little bit. Later on, when the car's back together and I'm all moved, I'll take it to a shop and have them kind of yank all this out with a proper tool. I think I have that shimmed up enough. I'm just using 3 pretty thick washers, and it's pull it out just enough where I think it looks pretty straight with the top one. I know this is not, this is not a permanent solution. This is just temporary for getting the truck to Austin where I'm moving. And then once we get there, we'll have this all figured out and make a more permanent solution than just 3 washers behind the latch. So that is, this is not a proper crash repair right now. I would not sell the car like this. Don't do this if you're gonna resell the car. This is not okay. The key word here is temporary. Temporary. Now before we put the door back on, we need to clean up all these rusty metal spots. We're just gonna quickly get off all the loose paint, get off the rust from everywhere, all the cracked areas. We'll just, we'll scrape it back a little bit. Just coat it really quick in a little bit of primer just so it doesn't continue rusting. And then we can start putting everything back together. All right, so this piece back here needs to be pulled back to about from here to here so that I can get bolted to there. So it has to come out quite a bit, but I can't get a wrench in there to pull, so the fender has to come back off. We'll pull it out and we'll put the fattener back on and see if it fits. All right, with a little extra pushing and pulling, I think I got it. When you pull this piece in, it lines up pretty well. Enough that I can get it bolted up. So we just have to put the little bolt back on, and then we'll be able to bolt it up from the inside. So we'll take the fender back off. We're gonna touch up all the paint, like I said, and then we'll start putting everything back together. All right, now we have that painted. We're just gonna be using this. This is like Loctite polyurethane roof and flashing. It's essentially like tar. And we're just gonna pack it into those areas that have been opened up. All right, now everything is dry, so we're gonna peel all this junk off and then get the new door on and start attaching all the pieces and transferring over anything that's left on the old door. I just wanted to show you guys how easy it was to get these clips off. So this is the weather stripping we're removing right now. It goes all the way around the door. It's this rubber piece. Everyone has them on all their doors. All you have to do is kind of just like lift it up. You'll see this little plastic bit, and on the bottom, this little tab, you just push in and it'll pop up. And then basically we're just gonna do that around the entire car. Closes nicely. Lines match up pretty decently. All right, so I think it's time to get that fender on and finish this baby up. What do you say, Hope?
You did a beautiful job.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Well, the truck is back together and I'm actually really happy with the way it turned out. I have a few little issues with it. You know, the clear coat on the fender and the door, it's not the same as OEM. It doesn't shine. It doesn't have that like reflectiveness that the OEM coat has. So we're gonna have to fix that later. The rattle can clear coat just, you know, it wasn't enough. And then the fender in the rear still has a lot of dents in it. I wasn't able to get that all out, but I'm literally moving in like 2 days. So I don't have time to make it perfect. But later on when we get to Texas, I wanna do like a finishing touches episode on the Ram where we fix all the little issues we didn't fix perfectly in this episode. But in general, I'm really happy with the way this turned out. The paint match from that rattle can actually looks really good. It's just the clear coat's not right. The new door fits really good and the new fender fits really good. It's gonna do a great job of towing all my stuff out. In the next episode, we will be doing the interior, fixing the airbags and everything else that's broken in the interior, cleaning it up, giving it a good wash. That episode will either come out next week or kind of like in the middle of the week after, just because like right after this video is released, I'm moving to Austin. So check my story on my Instagram because I'll probably be posting pictures of the move and towing out because I mean, I'm driving from LA to Texas and I'm doing it a few times. I am doing LA to Texas once with the U-Haul, with everything in the house. And then I'm doing Texas back to LA because I have to drop the U-Haul off. And then when I get back to LA, I'm picking up the new trailer that I just bought, which is really cool, and I'll show you guys pictures of that soon. And then picking up the Datsun here in LA, driving that out to Texas, and with anything else left in the garage, like the air compressor will probably go on that trip, and any of the really big things that can't fit in the trailer. So that's 3 times so far. And then I'm flying back to LA and picking up the WRX and driving the WRX out. I was gonna ship the WRX, but the cheapest I found for shipping was about $1,100. And a flight from Austin to LA it's like less than 50 bucks. It's super cheap. The gas from LA to Texas is probably only, a couple $100 on the WRX. It gets like 20, 25 miles to the gallon on the highway. It'd be like $300-400 to drive the WRX out versus getting it shipped. And I have the extra time. I like driving. It's $600 I can put towards the Datsun. All right, well, I think that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. I will catch you on the next one.